Where did you get this merchandise? I suggest you cooperate now before this gets worse.
I purchased these items 5 minutes ago. Here is the receipt. You need to come with me, ma'am.
Officer, I haven't done anything wrong. Here is my receipt.
The officer's voice sliced through the quiet store like a blade. Ma'am, I asked you not to touch the merchandise until you pay. Amara froze, her hand hovering over the stack of folded sweaters she had designed, approved, and ordered herself. The fluorescent lights above hummed, casting a sterile glow on the freshly waxed floor. Around her, 2 customers lingered, pretending to browse but watching with quiet hunger for drama. I own this store, she said, her tone low but steady. Officer Kane smirked. That's cute. You people always got a story. Huh. The words struck harder than the chill of the air conditioner. Amara's throat tightened. She glanced toward the front window, where her name, Mamara Ellis, owner, was etched in gold across the glass. The letters gleamed faintly, half obscured by the red and blue reflections of his patrol car lights outside. Show me some ID before you keep lying, Kane said, one hand resting on his holster, the other gesturing toward her purse like a command. Her fingers trembled. Somewhere behind the counter, the cashier, her new hire, watched in silence, frozen by the sight of authority. That the officer's radio crackled. Unit 4, copy disturbance at LooksThreads Boutique. Disturbance. The word burned through her chest. Amara reached into her bag, her movements slow, deliberate, trained by years of knowing what sudden motion meant to men like him. He took a step forward. Don't reach unless I tell you. He barked, gasps, a dropped phone. The hum of the lights drowned in the sound of her heartbeat. Then the glass door swung open, and a voice shouted from outside, sharp, urgent, and familiar. Officer Kane, step away from her now. The officer turned, hand tightening on his belt. Everything stopped. The siren outside still pulsed faintly through the glass. Blue, red like a heartbeat that refused to settle. Amara stood where he had left her, hands visible, wrists burning from the tightness of restraint. Uncuff her. The store manager, Carla, rushed from the back room, eyes wide. She's the owner. Look at the name on the window. Officer Kane didn't even turn his head. Ma'am, step back. We're handling a theft report. There was no theft. Carla's voice cracked. You're arresting the wrong person. Kane smirked, unfazed. That's what they all say. A young employee filmed silently from behind the counter. Trembling, Amara caught his reflection in a mirror, phone raised. Lips pressed together in fear. Officer, she said, voice steady despite her racing pulse. My ID is in my purse. My business license. You can check. The already told you not to reach, he cut in. You fit the description of a suspect reported from another store down the street. Same build, same hair. Her chest tightened. Hair, the word felt surgical, dissecting identity under a blade of assumption. Carla moved closer. Officer, please, her name's on every employee file here. Kane stepped closer to Amara, his shadow swallowing hers. You think I'm gonna take your word over dispatch? Amara met his eyes, blue, flat, unblinking. I think you should take the truth over your pride. His jaw tensed. The cuffs clicked tighter. Someone in the crowd murmured, this is crazy. Another whispered, why's he doing this? Kane turned toward them, barking, back up. Scene's under control. Control. That word, again, always, theirs. Her mother's voice echoed faintly from memory. They'll call it control, when it's really fear. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, mocking the silence that followed. Officer Kane, a voice broke through, the same one from the door, moments ago. Lieutenant Ramos, his superior. Her tone was sharp, urgent. What the hell are you doing? Kane straightened, jaw tight. Following protocol, ma'am. Possible suspect. Ramos' eyes flicked to Amara, to the trembling staff, to the phone's recording. Protocol doesn't include public humiliation. Ma'am, uncuff her. Now. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, with deliberate slowness, he released her wrists. The metal left red marks, like invisible branding. Amara rubbed the lines gently, this thing merging with the burn in her throat. Ma'am, Kane started, but the look Ramos gave silenced him. Carla rushed forward, placing a hand on Amara's shoulder. Are you okay? Amara didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the blinking red light of a camera phone still recording, still watching. Save that video, she whispered. Carla nodded. Already done. Outside, the lights kept flashing. Inside, the silence began to shift. Charged, irreversible. The moment would outlive them all. The video spread faster than she could breathe. By morning, Amara's name was trending beside words that twisted her stomach. Hashtag store owner arrested. Hashtag racist cop. Hashtag justice for Amara. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in. Journalists, activists, old friends from college, people she hadn't spoken to in years. Every ping was another reminder of her humiliation, now immortalized in pixels, replayed 1,000 times, on the TV. A news anchor's voice filled her quiet living room. A viral video from downtown shows Officer Daniel Kane detaining boutique owner Amara Ellis in what appears to be a racially charged confrontation. The police department has yet to release an official statement. Amara muted the TV. Silence flooded the room. She sat curled on the couch, hair tied back, an untouched cup of tea cooling beside her. Her reflection in the black screen stared back, composed on the surface, hollow underneath. The doorbell rang. Carla stood outside, holding a bag of takeout and her phone. "You need to eat," she said softly. "I can't," Amara muttered. "It feels like everyone's watching me chew." Carla set the food down and sat. "They're watching because they care. You didn't do anything wrong." "That's not what it looks like online." Carla unlocked her phone and showed the flood of comments. "Queen energy. Sue the department. We stand with you." But scattered between them, venom. "Stop playing the race card. Fake tears won't get you paid. Bet she started it." Amara exhaled shakily. "They always find a way to make it my fault." Carla's hand brushed her arm. "You could hold a press conference. Tell your side." She shook her head. "They already decided my story. I'm just a meme now." The apartment felt smaller with every passing second, walls closing in, screens glowing like judgment. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her mother. Amara hesitated, then answered. "Mama." Her mother's voice, firm and weary. "I saw the video. I didn't even. You don't have to explain, baby. I know how they are." Silence stretched between them, the kind of silence packed with generations of swallowed rage. Her mother continued, quieter. "You remember what your grandmother used to say. Don't let them break your posture." Amara blinked hard. She said that when they refused her service at that diner, she said it because dignity's the only thing they can't confiscate. Amara's voice cracked. "It feels like they already did." Her mother didn't answer right away. Then, gently, "Then you take it back." A knock interrupted them. Carla opened the door to find Jordan, one of Amara's senior employees, standing there, phone in hand. His eyes were red. "They're organizing a protest," he said. "Customers, community members, even city council. They're calling it Stand with Amara." Amara's stomach tightened. No protests. "I don't want more chaos." Jordan frowned. "It's not chaos. It's solidarity. I don't want to be anyone's symbol." He looked at her like she'd just spoken another language. "You already are." Amara turned away, staring out the window at the city skyline. The world outside looked ordinary. Buses running, people walking dogs. But somewhere, a part of her life had been cracked open for everyone to stare into. "Jordan," she said quietly, "you still have the footage?" "Yeah, backed up and time-stamped." "Good. Keep it safe." Carla caught her eye. "You're thinking of suing?" Amara didn't answer. Her thoughts were heavier, darker. "I'm thinking of surviving the week." She walked to her kitchen counter, grabbed her phone, and opened the email from a civil rights attorney who'd already reached out. The subject line read, "Representation Inquiry, Ellis v. Kane." She hovered over the reply button, finger trembling. The TV, still muted, showed an image of Officer Kane outside the precinct, clean uniform, calm expression, reporters shouting questions. His lips moved silently beneath the caption, "Officer denies wrongdoing." Her pulse quickened. He looked composed, untouched. Carla's voice broke the silence. "You should answer that email." Amara finally hit reply. Her message was short. "I'm ready to talk." She pressed send. The sound was small, almost nothing, but it felt like a fault line shifting. Later that night, she couldn't sleep. The city hummed outside her window, sirens distant, yet constant. Her mother's words replayed in her head, "Don't let them break your posture." So she sat up, spine straight, eyes open in the dark. Outside, a camera flash went off across the street, a reporter waiting for a glimpse. Amara closed the blinds, heart, steadying. If the world wanted to watch, she would make them see. The press conference looked like a theater performance, polished podium, flags lined neatly behind, microphones gleaming under studio lights. Chief Dalton adjusted his tie and spoke into the camera. This department stands firmly against racism in all its forms. Officer Kane's actions are under review. We ask the public to remain patient as the investigation proceeds. The words rolled off his tongue with practiced smoothness, each syllable polished of guilt. In the back row, Amara watched on a muted TV, arms crossed, jaw tight. Carla sat beside her on the couch. Under review, Amara repeated. Translation, we'll bury it. Carla sighed. They're just trying to calm people down. Calm who? Not me. The camera cut to Kane standing in uniform outside the precinct, shaking hands with another officer. Reporters shouted questions, but he smiled a politician's smile, not a cop's. He's not even suspended, Amara said. He's being protected. Carla turned down the volume further. Your lawyer's coming this afternoon, right? Yeah, noon. Amara's gaze stayed fixed on the TV, on Kane's smug posture. He looked untouchable. He knows they'll cover him. At the precinct, Kane leaned against a hallway wall, phone buzzing with messages from fellow officers. Ignore the noise, brother, we got your back. They're making this about race again. Stay strong, he smirked. Damn right, he muttered under his breath. Lieutenant Ramos approached, expression hard. Chief wants to see you. Kane straightened. In his office. Now, inside, Chief Dalton sat behind a wide oak desk, his hands clasped, voice low. Daniel, we've got a PR storm. That video's everywhere. You'll keep your badge for now, but no public statements. I didn't do anything wrong, Kane said flatly. Doesn't matter. Optics do. Dalton leaned back. The union's watching this. We can't afford to look weak. Just keep quiet. So I take the heat while they spin the narrative. Dalton's tone sharpened. You follow orders, or you'll take the fall alone. Kane clenched his jaw, nodding once. Ramos closed the door behind him as they left. You realize the city's about to turn on you, right? She said quietly. He smirked. I've seen it before. Blows over once the next outrage hit. Ramos looked at him for a long, cold moment. Maybe not this time. At Amara's apartment, her lawyer, David Niles, arrived, mid-40s, sharp suit, quiet confidence. He carried a folder thick with printouts and transcripts. He set it down on the table. You're not alone in this, Ms. Ellis. We've already filed for the release of the full body cam footage. Amara folded her arms. They'll never release it. They will if we force their hand. Carla leaned forward. What's the next step? David opened the folder. Public Records Act request, civil rights complaint, and media pressure. The footage is key. Without it, it's your word against his, and you know how that plays. Amara's eyes darkened. I know, David continued. Kane's history matters too. We've found prior misconduct reports to use of force complaints, one verbal abuse claim. None of them saw daylight. Carla's jaw dropped. They buried all that. Internal affairs cleared him every time, David said. The department protects its own. Amara nodded slowly. The blue wall. David looked at her. Exactly. He paused, tone softening. You don't have to be their victim twice. We're taking this public. Amara hesitated. You mean interviews, controlled ones. You tell your story before they twist it further. Carla frowned. Won't that make her more of a target? David met her eyes. She already is one. The difference is, this time, she fights back. At the precinct, late evening, Kane sat in his car, engine off, watching a looped clip of himself on the news. The audio muted, but the caption screamed, "Officer accused of racial profiling." He clenched the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. They don't know what it's like, he thought bitterly. You make one judgment call, and suddenly, you're a villain. His radio crackled. Unit 4, dispatch update. Protest forming outside HQ. Estimated crowd 200. He grinned to himself. Figures. As he stepped out, Lieutenant Ramos intercepted him. You're staying inside. No appearances. I can handle a few loudmouths. This isn't a joke, Kane. Neither is my job. She exhaled, weary. You still think this is about you? He didn't answer. Night fell. From her window, Amara watched the protests unfold on live TV. People holding signs, reading Black Business, not a threat, and released the footage. Carla stood behind her. Look at that turnout. You gave them courage. Amara shook her head. They gave me some. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. Walk away while you can. She stared at it, unreadable, then locked her screen. David's words echoed in her mind. You tell your story before they twist it further. Tomorrow, she decided. She would. The city lights shimmered outside 1,000 small fires, flickering against the dark. Behind one of those lights, In a precinct office, Kane sat watching the same news feed, face pale under the harsh fluorescent glare. For the first time, he looked uncertain. The blue wall was beginning to crack. The studio lights were blinding, bright enough to erase hesitation. Amara sat across from the interviewer, a well-known journalist with the clinical poise of someone who'd covered too many stories like this. "Ms. Ellis," she began, voice smooth, "millions have seen the video of your arrest. Why speak now?" Amara inhaled slowly, her palms hidden under the table. "Because silence only protects the people who did this to me." The interviewer nodded, waiting. "I wasn't just humiliated," Amara continued. "I was dismissed, in front of my own employees, in my own store." He looked at me and saw a stereotype, not a person. Behind the cameras, David watched, arms folded. Every word mattered. The interviewer leaned forward. "What do you want to happen now?" Amara met her gaze. "I want truth, the full footage, and accountability, not just for one man, but for the system that told him I was dangerous before I even spoke." The interviewer hesitated, then asked, "Do you believe Officer Kane is racist?" A hush fell over the room. Amara's answer was measured, deliberate. "I believe he's a product of an institution that rewards bias and calls it instinct." The silence that followed was heavier than applause. At the precinct, the interview played on a break room television. Kane stood at the back, arms crossed, surrounded by half a dozen officers. "Typical," one muttered. "They always play the victim card." Kane's jaw flexed. "Yeah, and the media eats it up." Ramos walked in, catching the tone. "You all done venting?" The room went quiet. She gestured to the screen. "Listen to her. Really listen. That's not acting. That's pain." Kane scoffed. "Pain. She's on national TV. She'll be famous before this is over." Ramos took a step closer. "And what will you be?" The question hung in the air. He turned away, silent. Amara's interview spread like wildfire. Networks replayed her calm, clear words. Hashtags flooded every feed. Support poured in. Activists, business owners, even celebrities amplifying her story. Her boutique's website crashed under the sudden traffic. Messages from strangers filled her inbox. "You spoke for all of us. We see you. You gave me courage to stay loud." But beneath the flood of love, the hate deepened to dot at midnight. Carla scrolled through comments. "You should stop reading these." Amara shook her head. "No, I need to see what they really think." Carla frowned. "That's not healthy. It's real." She turned off her phone, leaned back against the couch. "He gets a shield. I get a spotlight. Both burn." David entered the room with a laptop. "They're cracking. I just got word from an internal source. There's talk of Kane's disciplinary file being sealed again." Amara's eyes narrowed. "Again, Internal Affairs doesn't want to release it. They're saying the footage might compromise an ongoing investigation." Carla scoffed. "Compromise? It's evidence." David nodded. "Exactly why they're stalling." But the interview changed the narrative. "Public pressure's mounting. You've shifted the balance." Amara let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Funny how truth needs ratings to matter." David sat across from her. "It's not about the ratings. It's about resonance. People listened. That's power." She looked at him, tired, resolute. "Power without consequence is just noise. I want more than noise." He smiled faintly. "Then, we'll make it law." The next morning, Kane was summoned to an emergency internal review meeting. The chief's office felt colder than usual. Dalton sat flanked by 2 union reps and a city attorney. Dalton spoke first. "Public trust is collapsing. We need transparency." The union rep shot back. "Transparency gets our officers killed in the court of public opinion." Kane folded his arms. "So what? You're throwing me under the bus now." The city attorney's gaze was flat. "You embarrassed the department. That's what you did." Kane leaned forward. "I followed procedure." A suspicious individual matched the description of a suspect. "She owned the store," Dalton snapped. "You humiliated her in public, on camera." The silence was suffocating. Kane's voice hardened. "You're all acting like I did this alone." Ramos' voice came from the doorway. "You didn't, but you're the one who got caught." He turned sharply. "You think you're better than me?" "No," she said quietly, just aware of how bad it looks from the outside. Kane's fists clenched. "They'll forget. They always do." Ramos held his gaze. "Not this time." That evening, Amara's interview clip played on every news channel. Even late-night hosts quoted her words. David called her. "They just invited you to testify before the city's Civil Rights Committee next week." Amara blinked. "Testify? Under oath? Public hearing? They want your statement on record." Carla whooped softly from across the room. That's huge. But Amara didn't smile. They'll tear me apart on live television. David's tone was calm but firm. Then let them try. She stood by the window, looking out at the quiet city streets. The same sidewalks she'd once walked without fear now felt like stages of confrontation. Her reflection looked back at her tired eyes. Steady spine. You're ready, David said. Amara nodded. I don't know if I am, but I will be somewhere across town. Kane sat alone at a bar, watching her interview replay for the 5th time. The sound of her voice, calm, unwavering, sliced through the noise of laughter and clinking glasses. He looked down at his drink, then at the reflection of his own face in the glass. For the first time, it didn't look like authority. It looked like guilt. The footage they released was edited cleanly, surgically on the morning news. Amara watched the official body cam clip air, with polished commentary. The video showed her standing near a clothing rack, Kane's voice firm but calm, the cuffs snapping on almost gently. The caption read, "Officer followed standard protocol after receiving credible suspect description." Amara's stomach turned. They cut everything, she whispered. Carla stared at the screen. They made him look like a saint. Her phone buzzed. Messages poured in again, but the tone had changed. Guess she overreacted. This is why people don't trust the media mob. So the cop was right. Amara turned off the TV. They're rewriting the truth. David arrived moments later, storming through the door, his tie loose, eyes sharp. They violated the open records agreement. That footage was altered. Carla frowned. Can we prove it? Not yet, David said. But the metadata doesn't lie. Someone tampered with the times. We'll get the original. Amara's voice was low, calm in a way that scared both of them. And until then, David exhaled. Until then, we hold our ground. At the precinct, the atmosphere was smug. Officers slapped Kane's back as he walked in. Told you they'd fix it. One said, "Department's got your 6, man." Another added. Kane smirked. Yeah, truth always wins. Lieutenant Ramos passed by without a word. Her silence landed heavier than any insult. In the conference room, Chief Dalton briefed the team. Media narratives stabilizing. We'll issue a written statement and move on. Everyone clear. Ramos finally spoke. The footage is a lie. The room went still. Dalton's tone cooled. You have evidence of that, Lieutenant. Her eyes didn't flinch. I saw the raw file. I know what was cut. Kane turned toward her, voice low. Watch yourself. Ramos met his stare. You should have done that in the store. The room's tension snapped like a live wire. Dalton ended the meeting abruptly, but the divide had been carved deep. That night, the fallout hit Amara's business. She arrived at Looks Threads to find the front window splattered with red paint. The words liar and fraud dripped down the glass. Carla gasped. Oh my God. Amara stared, expression blank. They finally came for the store. Jordan appeared from around the corner, holding cleaning supplies. I already called the police. They said they'll send someone tomorrow. Tomorrow. Carla snapped. The owner of the store gets targeted, and that's not urgent, Amara said quietly. They're not coming. Jordan hesitated. Then we'll clean it ourselves. The three of them scrubbed in silence, the red paint smeared under the sponges, refusing to vanish entirely. Carla's eyes filled with tears. Why does it feel like we're losing? Amara paused, sponge in hand. Because we're fighting people who've never had to earn truth the hard way. Her voice broke for the first time that night, and they have institutions to do their lying for them. Meanwhile, David sat at his office desk, surrounded by legal pads and open files. His phone buzzed, an encrypted message from an anonymous number. If you want the real footage, check your inbox at midnight. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, the email appeared, an unmarked video file attached with no message. He clicked play. Unedited, raw. The moment. Kane grabbed Amara's wrist. The aggression, the tone, the laughter from bystanders, her calm voice, the entire truth. David's pulse quickened. He copied the file onto a secure drive and leaned back in his chair, muttering, "We have them." The next morning, Amara walked through the boutique's half-cleaned glass door. Her employees gathered, eyes tired but burning with something new. Jordan stepped forward. We're organizing a peaceful protest this weekend, outside the precinct. Customers, other business owners, everyone. Amara frowned. You'll all risk your jobs for me. Carla shook her head. For the truth. You gave us that. Amara looked around at them, young, old, diverse faces staring back with conviction. For the first time since the arrest, she smiled. Then we do it right. Peaceful, loud, and undeniable. At the precinct, Kane watched the same announcement on TV. Reporters standing outside, banners fluttering in the wind. Community plans mass protest against police misconduct this Saturday. His grip on the remote tightened. Ramos entered, calm but deliberate. You know what's coming, right? He didn't answer. They'll find the full video, she said. And when they do, that uniform won't protect you. Kane scoffed. You think they'll sacrifice me? I am a 10-year officer with commendations. Ramos' voice dropped. You're a liability with a camera pointed at your face. He turned toward her, jaw clenching. You leaking this? Her silence said enough. Careful, he muttered. You go against the wall. You're next. I already crossed it, she said. Walking out. Saturday. The sun hung high over the city plaza, shimmering heat on the concrete. Hundreds gathered, signs raised, chants echoing. Justice for Amara. Release the truth. Amara stood near the microphone, David beside her. Cameras rolled, drones hovered. She took a deep breath. I built my business on fairness, she began, her voice trembling. And they tried to erase me with a lie. But truth doesn't vanish. It waits. And when it comes, it burns clean. The crowd roared. David whispered, perfect. Stay with it. She looked over the faces, angry, tearful, hopeful, and continued. They wanted me to be afraid. But look around. Fear doesn't fill streets like this. Justice does. Her words spread through the air like fire. Somewhere inside the precinct, Kane watched the live feed from his desk, face pale, fingers tapping restlessly. Ramos stood behind him, eyes on the screen. This is how it starts, she said quietly. When the truth leaves the building. Kane turned, realization dawning too late. What did you do? Ramos smiled faintly. What you should have done. I gave them the footage. His face drained of color. You'll regret that. No, she said. You will. Outside, the chants grew louder, echoing against the walls of power. The system had drawn its line, and this time, it was starting to crumble. The precinct was quiet, unnaturally so, the kind of silence that only existed when something irreversible had already happened. Chief Dalton stood at the front of the operations board, arms folded, eyes sharp. The leaked footage played on the projector, the uncut version, Kane's voice echoing through the room, full of contempt. Amara's calm protest, the shove, the cuffs, the laughter, the truth. When it ended, nobody spoke. Dalton finally said, this footage is everywhere. Every news outlet, every social feed. The department's under siege. Kane sat stiff, jaw clenched. Someone inside released it. Ramos didn't look at him. Maybe someone decided justice mattered more than optics. He turned on her. You think you're a hero? You destroyed our credibility. No, she said evenly. You did that the moment you grabbed her. Dalton raised a hand. Enough. His voice cut through the tension. Internal Affairs has opened a full investigation. Kane, you're suspended, effective immediately. Kane's eyes went wide. What, you're throwing me under to save yourself? Dalton didn't answer. He just nodded toward the door. Two uniformed officers stepped forward. Kane rose, fists tight. You can't scapegoat me. I did my job. Ramos watched as they let him out. You did a performance, not a job. When the door closed, Dalton turned to her. You better pray you didn't have anything to do with that leak. Ramos held his stare. If I did, I'd sleep just fine. Dalton's silence was the sound of a crumbling institution. Outside, the protest had swelled. What began as hundreds had become thousands. Journalists lined the streets. Signs read, uncut truth, uncut justice. No more manufactured narratives. Amara stood at the front line, surrounded by cameras. David was beside her, earpiece in, coordinating interviews. A CNN reporter approached. Ms. Daniels, the police department has just announced Officer Kane's suspension. How do you feel? Amara took a breath, voice firm. It's not about how I feel. It's about what that footage proved. This wasn't one man's mistake. It's a culture of protection built on deception. The reporter nodded, impressed. And what's next? Amara's eyes hardened. Accountability. Real, not televised. The clip went viral within hours. Justice for Amara trended worldwide. The footage reached government officials, advocacy groups, even celebrities. For the first time, the system wasn't the only one holding the narrative. That night, Kane sat alone in his apartment, blinds drawn, the glow of his phone screen flickering against his face. His name was plastered across headlines. Officer suspended after racist arrest video leak. Public demands charges against Officer Kane. He scrolled through the comments, thousands of them. Hatred, death threats, memes of his face, with words like disgrace and badge of shame. He threw the phone across the room. It cracked against the wall, sliding to the floor. The knock came an hour later, slow, deliberate. When he opened the door, Ramos stood there, in plain clothes. "What do you want?" he said bitterly. "Closure," she replied. "You don't get to rewrite your story like the department tried to," he sneered. "You ruined me." She stepped closer. "You ruined yourself when you decided that badge meant control instead of duty." He laughed once, hollow. "You think this changes anything? They'll bury it in another news cycle." "Maybe," she said, "but the first crack never looks like a collapse. It just sounds like one." She left him standing in the dark, surrounded by silence he couldn't fight. At Lookstred's, the lights were back on, the window repaired, and the store full again. Customers came not just to shop, but to stand in solidarity. A mother told Amara, "My daughter saw your video," she said. "Now I know what courage looks like." Amara smiled faintly. "Tell her, courage is contagious." David entered with a small grin. "You just got invited to testify before the city council. Civil Rights Committee wants your statement." Amara blinked. "They're actually listening. They don't have a choice anymore." She nodded slowly, exhaling. "Then we make it count." At City Hall, the hearing room overflowed. Reporters packed every row, lenses pointed forward. Council members sat elevated, the emblem of justice looming behind them. Amara adjusted the microphone. Her hands didn't tremble. "Council members," she began, "I'm not here to destroy anyone's career. I'm here because silence almost destroyed mine. What happened in that store wasn't a misunderstanding. It was entitlement wrapped in authority." She paused, letting the words settle. "I want reform. Real checks on body cam access, independent review boards, and transparent footage logs. Because if truth can be edited, justice can be erased." The room broke into applause. A council member leaned forward. "Ms. Daniels, do you believe change is possible?" Amara looked at him, calm, unwavering. "Change isn't optional anymore. It's overdue." After the hearing, Ramos found her outside under the marble steps. Amara turned, surprised. Lieutenant Ramos nodded. "It's just Maria now. They reassigned me indefinitely." Amara hesitated. "You leaked it, didn't you?" Maria didn't answer directly. "I watched too many people protect the wrong things. I couldn't be one of them anymore." Amara studied her. "That took courage." Maria smirked faintly. "Maybe, or maybe I just got tired of the smell." They stood in silence, two women who'd both paid a price to expose the same rot. "Thank you," Amara said finally. Maria's reply was simple. "Don't thank me, just don't stop." Night, a news anchor's voice, filled living rooms across the country. "Tonight, Officer Kane remains under investigation, while city officials move to establish independent oversight committees." The viral case of Amara Daniels continues to ignite debate nationwide. Amara stood at her window, lights of the city reflected in the glass dot. David entered quietly. "You did it." She shook her head. "We started it." Outside, the sirens of another city echoed faintly, a reminder that her story was one spark in a storm of millions. And in precincts, offices, and hearts across the nation, something had begun to fracture, not a collapse, a reckoning. The storm of publicity had begun to fade. A week after the hearing, news anchors had shifted to other headlines, but the echoes still lingered. In the morning quiet of her shop, Amara stood behind the counter, fingers tracing a seam along a folded blazer. Lookstred's was running again, orders, inventory, customers, but her reflection in the glass looked older somehow, quieter. Carla came in with coffee. Watching her, "You haven't taken a full day off in 2 weeks." Amara smiled faintly. "Work keeps me steady." Carla set the cup down. "You don't have to prove you're fine." Amara didn't answer. Outside, a police cruiser slowed as it passed, then rolled on. Her shoulders tensed, just a reflex now. Carla noticed. "Still happens?" she asked softly. "Every siren, every uniform," Amara said. "Feels like a test." The doorbell chimed. A courier entered, leaving a plain envelope. Amara opened it, a typed letter from the Department of Justice. "Your testimony has been entered into the official record for civil oversight reform. We thank you for your courage and contribution." She folded it carefully. "Feels strange. You survive something that breaks you, and they call it courage." Carla met her eyes. "That's how change starts. Amara's gaze stayed distant. Then why does it still hurt? Across town, Kane sat in his car outside the precinct gates, stripped of badge, gun, and reputation. The suspension letter lay on the passenger seat. He'd been told the review board was recommending termination and possible criminal charges. The union wasn't answering his calls. He muttered, "They said they'd back me." His lawyer's voice from the last meeting echoed in his mind. "They can't protect you from the video. You're the face of the fallout now." He slammed the steering wheel, shouting into the empty car. "I followed protocol," but the words rang hollow, even to him. On the dash, a faded photo of his academy graduation smiled back. Him and Dalton, arm over shoulder, pride in their eyes. That world was gone. He sat there until sunset, watching the lights come on across the city that no longer wanted him. Later that night, Amara attended a community town hall in a small civic center gym. Folding chairs, cheap microphones, dozens gathered, not for spectacle, but solidarity. She sat in the back, unnoticed at first. As locals shared stories, a teen pulled over without cause, a store owner harassed, a mother recounting how her son stopped trusting police. Then someone recognized her. "Isn't that her?" a man whispered. "The woman from the video." A hush spread. The moderator looked up. "Miss Daniels, would you like to speak?" Amara hesitated, then rose. The gym's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She faced them. No podium, no cameras, just eyes. "I didn't plan to be anyone's symbol," she began. "I just wanted to be treated like a person. What happened to me shouldn't be normal, but it is, and that's the truth we live with." A long silence followed. "I can't tell you it gets easier," she said softly, "but I can tell you this, when you speak, they can't pretend they didn't hear. That's the start." Applause rose, not loud, but steady, a kind of collective exhale. Amara returned to her seat, her eyes wet but calm. For the first time, it didn't feel like reliving pain. It felt like reclaiming it. Days later, Maria Ramos met with Dalton in a closed-door disciplinary hearing. Dalton's expression was cold, exhausted. "You cost this department millions." "Lieutenant," Maria replied, "no, you did, when you tried to protect a lie." He leaned forward. "You think the system's going to change because one video went viral?" "I think it already has," she said. "People saw what we used to hide." Dalton scoffed. "And now they'll hate every badge, every cop." She shook her head. "No, they'll just stop fearing the truth." Outside, as she walked to her car, she saw a protest poster still taped to a lamppost. "Justice isn't optional." The edges were curling, rain-streaked, but it was still standing. Back at Lookstred's, the store closed early. Amara locked the doors, dimmed the lights, and sat at her sewing table. The TV in the corner murmured softly. A news recap. Civil rights advocates credit the case of Amara Daniels for prompting new transparency legislation, requiring all police body cam footage to be archived independently. Amara exhaled. Quietly. She picked up a piece of dark fabric, the same color as the uniform that had once humiliated her, and began to stitch. Each thread slow, deliberate, controlled. Carla entered quietly. "Working late again?" "Just finishing something," Amara said. Carla smiled. "Looks peaceful." "It is." She didn't mean the sewing. She meant the silence, not the silence of fear, but of survival. The camera of the mind would pull back from the small glow of her workshop window to the dark, restless city beyond. Somewhere, a siren wailed again, fading, not dominant. And for the first time, Amara didn't flinch. Morning light streamed across the city like a slow confession. The air carried that peculiar stillness that comes after a long storm. Fragile, unsure, Amara woke before dawn. The hum of traffic below faint but steady. She'd barely slept. Today was the sentencing. Officer Daniel Kane v. The people. The mirror reflected a face both tired and unbreakable. She buttoned her blouse, adjusted her blazer, and slipped a folded paper into her bag. Her statement, she'd written it the night before, rewriting every word until it no longer trembled. Carla drove her downtown. Neither spoke much. The courthouse rose ahead, pale stone against the morning haze, surrounded by barricades, cameras, and police tape. "The new architecture of accountability feels strange," Carla said softly. "Walking into the same system that broke you." Amara nodded. "Maybe that's why it needs to see me walk in free, inside." The courtroom buzzed. Journalists, activists, uniformed officers, all compressed into a single tense space. Kane sat at the defense table, suit crisp but his face drawn. No badge now, no authority, just a man waiting to hear what the world thought of what he'd done. Chief Dalton wasn't there. He'd retired early. Ramos sat in the gallery, plain clothes, expression unreadable. Judge Holloway entered, firm voice cutting through the murmurs. This court is now in session. The trial had been short. The evidence, the uncut footage, spoke for itself. Today was for sentencing and final statements. When the judge called her name, Amara rose. The courtroom went still. She stepped to the podium, unfolding the paper from her bag. Her hands were steady. Your Honor, she began, voice low but carrying. I was humiliated, handcuffed, and treated as a threat for existing in a space I built. That moment didn't just strip me of dignity, it showed me how quickly justice bends when power protects itself. She looked at Kane. He didn't meet her eyes. I could ask for punishment, she continued, but I'd rather ask for acknowledgement, because the real sentence here isn't time, it's truth. Let this record show that silence enabled this, that indifference sustained it. The judge nodded solemnly. Thank you, Miss Daniels. She returned to her seat. The quiet was deeper than any applause. Kane's lawyer spoke briefly, appeals to context, pressure, fear. They hung in the air, heavy but hollow. Then the judge spoke. Officer Kane, the court finds your conduct unlawful and racially discriminatory. You are hereby sentenced to 2 years incarceration, suspended upon completion of mandated civil rights rehabilitation and 1,000 hours of community service. Gasps rippled. Some called it lenient, others called it progress. Kane's face collapsed, not in anger, but disbelief. His empire of excuses had crumbled, quietly. The judge continued, voice firm, you will not return to law enforcement in any capacity. This court expects remorse, not rhetoric. Kane nodded once, barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. When the gavel fell, the sound was both ending and echo. Outside, the courthouse steps became a sea of reporters, microphones extended like weapons, questions shouted over one another. Ms. Daniels, how do you feel about the sentence? Do you think justice was served? Will you continue your advocacy? Amara stopped mid-step, eyes scanning the crowd. I think justice is ongoing, she said. Today was one page. The next one's on all of us. The crowd erupted flashes, cameras, applause. But she didn't stay. She turned and walked down the steps, toward the open street. Maria Ramos watched from across the plaza. Their eyes met for a brief second, acknowledgement without words. David caught up beside her. You handled that perfectly. She smiled faintly. No, I handled it honestly. He nodded. That's rarer. That evening, Amara returned to look. The store glowed warm under amber lights. A local artist had painted a mural on the wall, her silhouette facing upward, surrounded by words in soft gold. Own your name. Customers had left sticky notes of gratitude and stories. You gave me courage. You made me speak. We see you. Carla poured 2 glasses of wine. To survival. Amara smiled. To truth. The kind that doesn't fade when the cameras do. They clinked glasses. The moment felt full, not of victory, but release. Weeks later, the Department of Justice announced a new policy named the Daniels Transparency Act. Independent, civilian oversight boards, mandatory body cam disclosure within 30 days, and an open misconduct registry. The news anchor's voice on TV said it simply. One woman's story sparked a nationwide shift in accountability. Amara muted it and stepped outside. The city skyline shimmered in twilight. She breathed it in. The noise, the sirens, the life that kept moving. A teenage girl approached shyly, holding her phone. You're her, right? From the video, Amara smiled. I'm me. The girl grinned. My mom says you changed things. Amara looked at her young, bright, unbroken. Then make sure they stay changed. The girl nodded, ran off. Amara turned her gaze upward. The same sky. But it looked different now, lighter. Across town, Kane swept floors in a community center gym. Court-ordered service. Kids played basketball nearby, shouting, laughing. None of them looked at him twice. He paused, leaning on his broom, watching them. The sound of their laughter cut deeper than judgment. For the first time, he understood something he never had in uniform: invisibility. He glanced at a wall poster. Every voice deserves dignity. He turned away, resumed sweeping. Back at Looks Red's closing time. Amara stood by the window, city lights reflecting across the glass like ghosts of everything that had happened. Her voice, soft, almost to herself. It's not over, but it's begun. Behind her, Carla called, "You coming?" Amara smiled, locking the door. Yeah. As she stepped outside, the street hummed, alive, flawed, real. The night breeze caught the edge of her blazer, and for a moment, she looked weightless. No flashbulbs, no applause, just peace, earned the hard way. And in that quiet, the story's truth settled. Justice wasn't vengeance. It was survival with a name,